We see ourselves like the Google Maps for crypto transaction, which means that you can trace and track crypto assets with our platform. But as Google Maps is just following the fastest path, we are calculating the fastest route through the crypto base until a certain service, which we are giving out to the client. And as you know, when you're zooming out in Google Maps, you see like a heat map and see like concentrated towns, cities, whatever. What we can show you is really a picture of money laundering patterns, for example. So if you're zooming out, you see like how the transactions are connected or the addresses are connected with each other.
Hello and welcome to Let's Talk About Tech, our podcast and YouTube show brought to you by Venionaire Capital, the entrepreneurial partners. Today, it's my great pleasure to introduce you to Karl Zettl, founder of Iknaio. Welcome, Karl.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have the second most important Styrian oak here with us. Obviously, everybody thinks of Styria and knows Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I'm sure after this show, they will remember Karl Zettl and Iknaio. Tell us a little bit about your history, how you grew up in Styria and how you got into tech and especially into the founding of today's company, Iknaio.
Yeah, thank you once again for having me. Yes, as you mentioned, I grew up in Styria. It's the eastern part of Styria. I was grown into a restaurant family. The point there is I learned there already my first lessons, which means that treat everybody equally and listen to people. And if everything went fine, then usually you serve joy, which is just a pleasure, I would say, right?
And obviously sleeves up and work hard, right? Restaurant business is not an easy business.
That's right. I mean, my mother was working and father as well, 16 hours a day. So that's something which is coming actually with having a restaurant, right? There is one weird stuff though. So when I try to feel or try to get the rest, it's the best thing for me to get into noise because I'm used to it, that there are a lot of people around me. So that's a little bit of weird stuff which is coming with the restaurant, but everything else is like it is.
So you're bound to live in metropole cities. Yeah?
Yes and no, or sleep in some restaurant or wherever, right?
Okay. So, and how did you get into tech?
Yeah. So yeah, I started then the career in höhere technische Lehranstalt. Went to university. That's where I got into tech. So I studied at the TU in Graz. And yeah, afterwards I joined companies in the payment industry. So it was more or less an accident, I would say, that I got into the payment industry. But yeah, I mean, I'm there for more than 15 years. So I kind of got stuck there. I like it, even though it might sound a little bit boring from the outside. But there is a lot of movement, especially in the last years. I mean, also fintech nowadays gets a little bit stuck, but it used to be a quite fascinating place, and that's why I'm in.
Originally, you started in Infineon, right? So in the semiconductor industry, one of the high-tech leaders in the world. How did you switch from semiconductors to payments?
Actually, before that, I was joining a company producing plastic cards, credit cards. And then I went back to the supplier for the plastic cards. And then I went back to plastic cards. And then I started doing a consultancy for banks in Austria. So that's actually how I started. So I started in the payment industry and got used to it. And stuck since then.
Okay, so it's loops, right?
Right. It's a lot of loops.
I mean, which founder story is just straight?
I don't know anyone actually.
Me neither. So, okay. And then with this technology background, you then found this technology that was originally invented at the Austrian Institute of Technology, 2015, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And this then was a spin-off later. How did that evolve? How did Iknaio got founded?
Mm-hmm. So, as you mentioned, everything started back in around 2015. It was supported by a lot of European projects, such as Crypto Crime or others. And it was launched by AIT, the Austrian Institute of Technology. And it was evolving. It has an open source core. I guess we will talk a little bit later on about that one as well. And it was like it is usually. So it was driven by more or less 4 people. And they got confronted with some commercial requests. And that's why they decided afterwards that they have to do a spin-off. And this was supported by the AIT and finally executed by the Complexity Science Hub Vienna. And that's where we are. So we started back then in 2021. That's also when I joined. So I'm not one of the crypto tech guys. It's always good if you have people that know more than you about the topic. And I'm lucky to have everyone around me who knows more than me about this topic.
Are you capable of explaining really simple what the blockchain is and what the difficulty is, the problem that you're solving with Iknaio?
Yeah. So actually, we see ourselves like the Google Maps for crypto transaction, which means that you can trace and track crypto assets with our platform. But as Google Maps is just following the fastest path, we are calculating the fastest route through the crypto space until a certain service, which we are giving out to the client. And as you know, when you're zooming out in Google Maps, you see like a heat map and see like concentrated towns, cities, whatever. So, and what we can show you is really a picture of money laundering patterns, for example. So if you're zooming out, you see like how the transactions are connected or the addresses are connected with each other.
Let me understand that a bit better. A wallet is a weird array of codes, right? And one wallet with this weird array, right, not holding my name, right, is making transactions with other people, right? Obviously, everything is traceable on the blockchain, right? But we don't know who the exchanges were, like the decentralized exchanges or centralized exchanges. How do you keep track and how do you identify if something is money laundering or just a random classical transaction?
Yeah, so there are several ways to do that. First of all, we are getting tags, meaning annotation for certain addresses. So just imagine, I mean, there are always, you can find addresses connected to certain services, money laundering, whatever. And we're gonna link this in our database. So we are not giving personal information about the addresses, but we can categorize them. We can tell this address had to do with a certain money laundering pattern. And that's how we find out the category of the address. So we label them, and you can see that they are connected with any of these cases. And the other point is, if you see like certain amounts which are just changing after the comma and doing transaction within a certain time, then this might also be the case that there is something like money laundering in the background. So you see like 20 transactions within 1 second, and everyone is having like 500 euros, 0.01, 0.02 amount of euros which are transferring. So this is also like an indication that there could be money laundering in the background.
Why is this an indication?
Because usually there is a certain limit which you're allowed to transfer without being recorded. And if you're below this certain threshold, then you can have this kind of an indication that there is money laundering in the background.
Okay. So you're looking for patterns.
Yes.
And also you're flagging certain wallets.
Exactly.
So if my son or daughter are playing around with some meme coins and end up in the wrong DeFi space, they might get labeled as corrupt even if they don't.
The point is how we are tagging is we are doing our own tagging. So we are really checking what's behind that one, because we are working with law enforcement, which means that we have to prove that if we label a certain address as money laundering, then we have to prove that there's money laundering in the background. So if there is anything by circumstance and we can not label them correctly, then we will not label them, right? So if there is anything done by mistake, we might rather not label them, or label them as very weak indication that there might be something. And it's anyhow from us, it's just an indication that there is something. But if you go to court, also the police has then, or the law enforcement has then to prove that this is that there is money laundering in the background.
It's incredibly fascinating, and also a bit of a relief, right? That there's deeper science involved, and that you're not just, saying anybody trading with them is a bad person, right?
Right.
So this is good. Why is your solution open source? Isn't that opening the gates for the criminals out there to check if they are labeled yet or not, right? Or to change their patterns? Isn't that contradictory to be open source?
If you say it like this, yes, but is it like this? No. So the core is open source. So we are still in close cooperation with the Complexity Science Hub in Vienna, and we further develop this kind of core. But we are putting value-added services on top of it. First of all, the labeling is just our data, which we are just giving out for subscription fees. Second of all, we are hosting this service and making it SLA standards, which we are used to in the industry. So that's a second point. And the third point is we are really putting value-added services on top of it, just as process automation or some mass data processing.
Okay, so the business model of open source is actually an intelligence layer on top that you have commercialized.
Exactly.
That anybody else could also launch a company based on the open source core and work with that.
Yes.
Okay, very interesting. And how is the community evolving around that? Is there many contributors to this open source technology?
So currently, this is also one major thing which we have on our flags, that we are inspiring the community to get into. The point is that currently we are not that successful in that, so we still need to push it. We have once a year an exhibition where we try to push the community, getting people in, talking about what happens with the core, what are we doing, what are the use cases, having then like prosecutors there, having like lawyers there telling about what they're doing. So this is something where we try to push the community. Still, we are a small team, 10 people, which means that you cannot be everywhere at the same time. And so this is truly a major goal, but we are not yet there.
Okay, so the community engagement is basically something that slowly builds up.
Yes.
A little bit like Wikipedia, right? Was dead for a long time, then grew. Now I think it's a closed shop. Nobody can enter anything anymore. The authors don't let you in.
Yeah.
But it's a different story. So going back to fighting cybercrime,
Yeah.
there is different parts of the world, right, that have a different stage of maturity in digital assets, adoption of blockchain, etc., and obviously also in the payment space. So when you look at the global map, which parts of the world are the most interesting for you in terms of development?
Yeah. So what we truly see, I mean, I tend to say, or not I tend to say, there's this famous saying, the US is famous in innovation, China is famous in scaling, and Europe is famous in regulation. So I truly see this in the crypto space as an advantage. Everybody's looking at us. Everybody tries to adopt this. Therefore, I truly believe that we are currently in a very fascinating time in Europe, since the MiCA just launched in 2025, sorry. So therefore, we see here a lot of regulations. Nevertheless, there are other regions, and that's what I tend to say. Europeans are the ones who are creating problems to solve them. But there are other regions of the world who really have problems, right? I mean, if you look, for example, to Africa, and this is one region where we are currently investigating in, what we see there is that they have issues like sending money from one point to the other. I mean, they have a famous mobile payment solution like M-Pesa and Airtel. Nevertheless, they have issues, since this is based on short messaging, that the messaging services get down. I mean, you need to send 7-10 SMS just to get the payment done, right? So this is just putting down the network. Therefore, what we've seen in Africa is that there are currently a lot of bridging technologies from getting from mobile money into crypto right now, and this is opening a total new space. So there are services like Yellowcard down there who are transferring the money into crypto, and from there they can solve the issues which they're having. They have the issue that you as a, I don't know, you want to send money to your parents, then and most probably this is cross border, then it's quite easily to do this via crypto, right? It's, I mean, there are countries like Nigeria having an inflation of 25%. So wouldn't stable coins make sense there, right? Just to get rid of the inflation itself. And then
But how would the stablecoin tackle inflation? Only if you use a stablecoin backed by a different currency,
exactly,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So this
Okay.
would be just a thought. I mean, this not that it must be in or should go in this direction. It's just that if you are stuck within your currency, there are ways how to get rid of the inflation then, right?
Yeah, well, but detaching from monetary policy while the country itself has rising prices in energy or other goods, etc., maybe a switch in the monetary system might not even help. I'm not an economist
Yeah.
by trade, but yeah, okay. But difficult tasks, I agree. I agree.
And what we see is, and that's what we are telling them. I mean, we saw, for example, I mean, there are different statistics out. What we saw, for example, in Kenya, that they have received over 1 year more than $6 billion in cryptocurrencies.
Oh, wow.
And the first question which I get down there is, how do you know that this is correct? And what we are telling them is, not we should know whether this is correct, you should know whether this is correct. And therefore, we are delivering them tools, how to monitor all their players in the market to understand how much money is in the system.
Is there a geotagging on crypto transactions?
It's not, but if you have the exchanges which are then certified or get the license within a certain country, then of course you can ask them to get the information where which wallets belongs to certain countries.
Okay, so with regards to the fiat off-ramp, government institutions, law enforcement institutions can get this information. I could not call Bitpanda and ask them who's trading with them.
You can call whomever you want, but I would guess that this is not something which you can get out of them.
With GDPR, I'm quite sure I'd get a very, very angry answer, right? Even for trying.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is basically how you get those labels while working with the government institutions and understanding that, and you give this transparency. What is Kenya then doing with this transparency?
So the one point is, once again, getting an understanding, first of all, how much money is in the system and whether this is destabilizing their own money system there, right? So this is a major point there. And then starting from there, they can think about putting some kind like taxes, capital gain taxes on top of it. So they can get money out of that, right? Also, one point which I'm mentioning there is there are two ways how to cope with crypto assets. The one is to ban it, but this means chaos, or you regulate it. And for regulation, you need some tools to monitor the laws which you put in place, right?
Right. And also, I mean, tax authorities appreciate regulation, right? Because then it's clear who has to pay what, right? And obviously it causes income, right? Which governments, especially in Europe, do need, right?
Yes.
To tackle the certain expenses that are around. I see that. So you see MiCA as an advantage. Now, looking from like a competitive perspective, right? You said the US is innovating, China is scaling, Europe is regulating. That doesn't sound too promising that Europe actually is capable to succeed and to build, the next technology hub and to remain driving the current welfare that we're living in. What's your take on Europe in innovation?
You are really touching a hot topic for me as well, because I love to live in Europe. I think it's I believe it's the nicest place on the earth. We have like all our social insurances. We have like beautiful lakes, beautiful mountains here in Austria. So this is something where this is a very hot topic for me as well. I believe the only thing how we can move forward, first of all, we have more than, depending on how you count it, but more than 450 million people living in the EU, whereas the US has 300 something. So we're still big, we still have money. I believe how we can cope that one is to really inspire the young people. Like looking to a Berthold, looking like he has built something, right? So I truly believe that we have to go in this direction to really inspire the youth and show them that there is something to do, that you can build something, that it makes sense, and that you can be influential there as well. And I truly believe that this is the only chance which we are having, just inspiring the young.
100%. I fully agree. You guys should build. We need more tech companies. We need the next hidden champions, and they can be from Europe. And in fact, Europe is really good in hidden champions, which are world and European market leading companies with plenty of those.
Yes.
I think per capita, Austria is even leading the pack. I need to ask you one number where I'm not sure if you have it out of your pocket. We didn't talk about this before. I've heard, I think it was a year ago in the radio, that more people in Austria are now holding crypto, right, than holding stocks. Is that a myth or is it true?
I actually don't have numbers about that one as well, since we are just operating with the law enforcement in this area. What we see is that the numbers of fraud is rising still. We see
also here in Europe.
Yes.
Oh wow.
We see that there is one statistic saying that alone in 2024, more than 40 billion US dollar have been sent to illicit addresses, crypto addresses. And this was increasing from 24 something billion. So you see that there is a big increase there. So what I see is that the fraud is still catching up, is still massively done here in Europe as well. And therefore, I believe what we need here is more education. Also in this perspective, I believe that people should be educated also in schools in general about money, because it should be quite obvious that you cannot earn 5% interest per day. So, and if people start realizing that, maybe then also the fraudsters are more caught up, are more putting down in a way, so that they are not getting this kind of big stake which they're having right now.
But it sounds like you said there was money sent. So this is active abuse of this blockchain technology. Maybe not the smartest because it's traceable, right? So in the end, you're doomed to be found, right, as a stupid criminal in the end. How about stealing? I've learned that cryptos you hold in your wallet, right, your key, right, is with you, right, and as long as you keep that private, right, nobody can take away your assets. So how could institutionals now entering the blockchain market stay safe? Is there still also like stealing activities going on?
Yeah. So we saw the Bybit case just in February.
On a centralized exchange. So they had the custody, right? Yeah.
And they were just moving money from one of their cold wallets to warm wallets. And that's where they got stolen, right? So
so from the cold wallet,
from the transfer, and I'm really not a technician about that one.
Okay.
It just got stolen in the process of transferring that one.
Okay.
And that was 1 billion, 1.5 billion, something around that.
Gazillions, right? I don't know, big numbers.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Crazy.
And so of course it's always the famous saying, not your keys, not your coins. Nevertheless, what we still see, you don't need to be a crypto expert to deal with it. Therefore, services as Bitpanda, as all the big exchanges, of course, have are here to help these people to also get on the blockchain.
And also right? Bybit as being one of the largest exchanges in the world, and now I think they have even the European headquarters in Austria. I have heard that they had great insurance and that their investors actually got bailed out by insurance, right? So they were prepared for such an incident.
Yeah.
And that's actually also a good sign, right? So working with professionals might harm you less, right? Give you more security. Then cold wallets, keeping your Bitcoin in the pocket, not very useful if you want to trade with it, right? But at least nobody can steal it unless they get in your pocket, right? But in institutional adoption, what other measures to fight cybercrime or like to have more security? What other measures do you see in the market? Is there an involvement? Is there something changing?
So what we see currently is that the law enforcement is really pushing for that one. So if they're gonna catch up with the criminals, then it's harder for them to use crypto as the platform, as the protocol to steal money.
So they shy away.
Right. So therefore, I believe we have to put or get more trust into the system, and that's what we are fighting for. I mean, our vision clearly is to make a future where crypto ecosystems are more secure.
Right.
And that's what we are fighting for. And this should be clearly the direction.
That's amazing. More secure blockchain made in Europe by Iknaio. That sounds amazing. Karl, it was a pleasure speaking with you. Very good insights. I learned a lot, and I hope you did too. Please subscribe to our channel. Tune in for the next episode. Don't forget about Let's Talk About Tech. Bye-bye.